Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final panel of Automotive Logistics Russia 2017. I hope you've enjoyed the day so far. We've had some interesting discussions, heard some high-level topics, some looking at hopeful forecasts and positivity. We dug a little bit deeper into some issues like the customs and like quality, tier part supplier operations, and now this is a chance to have an overall discussion, a big panel discussion on some of the topics we haven't covered, and also to cover again from a different perspective some of the questions we've already talked about in the last 2 days. I'd like to remind you that the evaluation forms are on your desk before you go today. Those are very, very important to us. So please complete the evaluation forms, give us your honest comments, and let us know, because as we say, these conferences are your conferences. What you say is how we will try to develop the conference. So please complete those. We take them very seriously. And of course, after this panel, there will be some drinks in the lobby outside, and then a final dinner overlooking the beautiful Moscow traffic, but also the skyline of Moscow. So please join us for the final opportunity to network and share some ideas at the end of this panel. This is the panel discussion, and one of the good things about Russia is the involvement in the panels. You saw even in the earlier panels there were questions from the audience, and sometimes I had to stop the questions because we had to carry on to the next session or to the coffee breaks or lunches. I hope this will continue for this session too. So please share your views, ask your questions, make your comments. It is important to have a discussion. It's not just to ask the panel some questions. The panel is here to be a part of the discussion, not to be the only part of the discussion. As usual, the questions and the discussion will be both in Russian and English, and if Alberto is here, also in mixed Italian and Russian. So please be ready, and we are happy to have the questions in English or Russian, whichever you are most comfortable with. So we have a great panel here, which starting from near to me, is Alexander Golovanets from SCAD, the part supplier. Then Elena Divakova from Mercedes-Benz. Then Kamil Mezinski from Jeffco. Then next to him is Elena Lukanova from Adam Poland Vectura. And then at the end, a late join member of the panel, Elizaveta Korshunova from Gaz Group. So I think it's a good mix and an interesting panel. And I'm also very pleased and kind of proud, really, that we have a majority of ladies in the panel, and also had a fair mix of speakers in the conference from ladies. We've had a couple of conferences in America and even in Europe, where we had, over a 2-day period, we had one lady speaker, or one lady on stage at the whole conference. So I'm pleased to see that in Russia we have, even in the final panel, good feminine or female involvement. And of course, although I'm happy to have the ladies on the panel, it wasn't done because we need to have some ladies on the panel. The reason we have them on the panel because we wanted the most important people on the panel, and the fact that they are ladies is just shows that they are the important people. We never chose ladies just for political correctness. So thank you to the panel, and we'll go kind of straight onto the questions now. I will ask the first question, but please, as I said before, the point is to get you involved in the questions and in the panel. And maybe a question which I didn't share with you in advance is really just it was a comment that someone made in the first session today, This is the reality. This is Russian automotive logistics. We're expecting growth, but hopefully slight growth. But this is the industry that we're in, and I think the comment was, this is the industry, so just deal with it. So I suppose, I'm not sure if it's a real tough question, but it's just the thing is, have you adapted to the reality of automotive logistics in Russia? This is it. It's going to grow, but slowly. We're not going to get 3 million in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years, perhaps even longer. So is this the reality of Russia? And we're changing to deal with it. So I'll start on this side, and then perhaps we'll move along if you've got anything to add to it. So Alexander from SCAD, this is automotive industry in Russia. We've got to get on with it and improve and fix what we do to suit the reality of the automotive industry in Russia.
Please. We cannot hear the speaker. We cannot hear the speaker. It's something wrong with the microphone. Something wrong with the microphone, or the speaker hasn't switched it.
We can't hear the microphone clearly, so sorry. I'm really sorry, Alexander, but if we can start again.
Я полагаю, не стоит пропустить.
Well, I guess we should say that foreign companies are getting ingested, and there is no alternative for us. We live in this country. There is no other alternative. We have to live here and to adjust ourselves. No other alternative.
Which of the microphones are working now? So
This one is working. This one is working.
Он не понимает.
yeah, so if you can use this one, sorry.
Well, as a representative of an international company, I'm here to inform you that Mercedes-Benz in Russia has been around since 1972. The rep office was opened as far back as 1972. And since that time, Mercedes-Benz have been quite successful developing along with the market. First, we opened up the rep office, then a subsidiary, components, warehouse, and currently, amid tough times and different downturns, the company's top management made a decision to have a factory constructed here. Last week, the first stone was laid into the foundation of the would-be factory. So from our perspective, times could be different. Russian market is rather challenging always altogether, but we live along with it and we go with the flow with it.
And now, on behalf of a foreign company, I will try to speak Russian and hope you won't assess it.
It's kind of depending on the market we are in. In Russia, we are saying that we are Russian company. In Europe, we are saying that we are the foreign company owned by the Russians. So, okay, Russians in here. Oh, все, перепутал уже. Все языки.
So I've mixed up all the languages, but in fact, I'm in Russia for 11 years already. So I remember good times, 2006, 2007, and 2008. And what is most interesting when you communicate here at the forum, everybody is living in expectation that these good times will come back in a year or so. I remember when we spoke, I think in 2015, that the sales will reach 3 million. We'll achieve this by 2020. In 2016 or 17, this 3 million were shifted to 2025 as a target. Today in the morning, I've seen that it will happen in 2028 or 2029, something like that. In fact, The main thing is that this market is living and thriving with the hopes, and this is good. And a lot has changed in Zhevko company, especially for the last 4 years, that were very tough. Zhevko in Russia has been dependent from automotive market and still is. In 2013, the level of dependency from automotive amounted to 97%. Now, it's less than 70% of Zhevko turnover is a turnover from the automotive companies, both inbound and outbound logistics. And in fact, Louis, we have prepared ourselves to new reality. We have compressed our assets very strongly. I remember 2008, probably when Zhevko operated at 7 sites, 3 main ones and a lot of small ones, where we tried to fit in, squeeze in cars. Now we have only 2 sites. In good times, Zhevko operated a fleet of vehicle carriers, around 300 units. Now the amount is significantly lower. We had to consolidate the human assets as well. Previously, Zhevko had a subsidiary, Algai, that was the name of the company, that was responsible for General Motors distribution. We all know that there are no those volumes anymore, and we had to consolidate that company as well, that subsidiary. We have united it all, and now it is only Zhevko. Zhevko has changed a lot, and I must say that we are ready for new reality. But also, the same as Yelena mentioned, the market in Russia is not simple, but it is very perspective. And we all believe that these 3 million will come back. And I hope not by 2030. And the same as Mercedes, Zhevko invests into Russia, including the opening of Domodedovo Park a year and a half ago. And I can share with the market with the news that Zhevko is investing into the development of specialized rail cars fleet to transport vehicles. We believe that Russia is one of the most interesting and perspective markets in Europe.
But just, what is the new, this is the reality of Russia? Does it mean this is the reality of Russia, so we accept business is going to be bad? Or do you say this is the reality of Russia, we have adjusted, and we will make sure we make a success for your company, for Adam Paul and Vectura in the real Russia?
I think that in reality, to work in Russia means to work, constantly work. And this is the main position. I would like to comment participation of ladies in this business. I think that Theresa May is not by accident the Prime Minister taking Brexit situation into account. I think we have logistics exit now, but we as ladies will try to prevent this outcome. If we speak about what we can recommend, I would say that this is the best time we have now. And Camille remembered 2015. I can remember 2010. And I see Alexei Tinkov here among the delegates, logistics director of GM. And we remember Andrei of 2010. It was flooding time when there are lots of orders and the rates doubled. The realities are such. We cannot save anymore, that's for sure, now. And if we speak about how we planned by 2015 to have an optimistic, positive scenario, and we also thought about a pessimistic scenario. Now we may say that we are planning an absolutely negative and still more negative scenario, up to the decisions connected with the dismissal of personnel. And I speak about the overall situation on the market. But among these operators that exist as of today, we've got about 3,000 car carriers. I think that in reality it's about 2,000 or 2,200 auto carriers that are working. We see another leg, rail cars. This is great support and help, also subsidies. But maybe we should not rely on the support. Our support and assistance may be found in such examples as, for example, look at Daimler. They are working to have less waste paper in Russia, to have electronic invoices and all other documents to be collected not in paper. Very often it takes 5 days for some documents to be recovered. We very often even forget how huge this country is, and I think that our preparation is that we've started investing into new fleet and we're not going to stop it, which means that our company will be a real transportation company that will bring and deliver the vehicles that you've produced, dear gentlemen, not by railroad, but by motor road, even if this motor road won't be of the best quality. But this is a different story. Good afternoon. We all remember the history of the automotive market development. I am on this market from the end of 2007, and so I've went through 2 crises and have some practical experience how to manage outbound logistics. From the point of view of gas, the efficiency of the processes has increased from 2008, from when everything was great, up to now, when we probably have reached the bottom of the drop down, and it is very good that we've gone through the negative times for the market. Jeffka told about their achievement. We have similar achievements in terms of the number of warehouses and different space and internal processes we are using. We're ready for any changes, because after all this experience of living through the crisis, we obtain a platform for future development. As for the readiness of LSPs to what is going to happen, to me it is probably a key issue, a key risky issue that I see on the market. But I hope very much that with major players who understand that the market should be developed by any ways, try to find and raise all these investments, maybe agree with OEMs that we should share these investments, try to find compromises. With all this, I think we'll manage to find the solution to any situation, never mind what happens. We're ready to any situations.
Maybe to follow up on that point, because it is an issue in Russia, is the capacity particularly in the finished vehicle logistics side, or that's what we've heard today. So again, to the panel, but also to people in the audience, about how do we solve this problem? I hear both sides. I hear the logistics, the easy problem, the easy solution for the logistics companies if they pay us more money. But I also hear the discussion from the other side about the reality and being able to do that and the desire to do that, and also how the logistics companies fight themselves. Their competition is reducing the prices themselves. Obviously, there can't be collusion because that's illegal amongst other things. But what is a potential solution to this capacity issue? Is it we will just continue as we are until something happens, or until there is a major problem? Or is it car makers and logistics companies working together? Is there a solution to this issue? So, I mean, for sure, it's to the panel, including the logistics providers and the vehicle makers, but also to anyone on the audience who has a particular view on that, whether it's from other car makers or logistics service providers. Is there a solution? Is anyone prepared to try and answer that question?
Nobody wants to answer, so we'll have to, I think.
Maybe I try to say in English because yes. Please, now it is attention for whole foreign companies. Please don't invest in fleet, in domestic distribution in the Russian Federation. Thanks to it, our domestic and experienced operations will have enough money for great investment in their new fleet. Поэтому большая просьба, если не хотите инвестировать.
If you do not want to invest in Russia, do not do this. We'll cope ourselves. As of today, I think that the greatest event that took place is that we sit together with Jeffco.
Yes. И до сих пор мы
And we're still alive.
на сегодняшний день для нас принципиально
This is not bad at all.
решение.
So up to now, one solution is of principle to us. It is a dialogue solution. When together with manufacturers, we'll be opening new projects. Repeat the Renault experience starting from 2009. We'll repeat Ford Solar's experience, which I can brag about, but also show and demonstrate my experience when, thanks to joint investments, we decided to sign a 5-year contract for the provision of 100% of transportation of Ford vehicles produced in Russian Federation, provided the investments are made into transportation fleets. So maybe Mercedes will transport not only Mercedes, but also Ford, maybe. Yelena? Or Jeffco? I can add that maybe not everything will go by motor roads. As they say in Russian railways, Russia lives by railways. In fact, I think, and I believe that there always will be companies that will be ready to invest in Russia, and this always has been. Remember the crisis of 2009 that frightened people a bit? The crisis that we're going through now took a longer time and it is more severe, but I am really sure that as soon as the market is restored, there will be new companies, the fresh ones and those that already exist on the market, and they will invest into the new equipment. As for the prices, we have agreed. Yes, in fact. But I had to say this, the first one. And in fact, Russia is a country where markets decides everything. In Europe, it is much calmer, much more peaceful. They have the cost blues, the fuel. In Russia, It's only the market that really decides things. And when the market will go up, some people luckily, some people unluckily will see the prices going up as well. And this is not a question to LSP, give us more money and everything will be great. It is a question of real costs and real equipment. What Alberto mentioned. Just for you to know, we have carried out very simple calculations, very general calculations, in order to renew the vehicle carriers fleet, and this has to be done. The prices on the market have to be at the level of 80 rubles per kilometer. Though now they're a bit lower than 60. So the market has to shift a bit for the companies to be able to invest. That's it.
Mercedes and Gaz, you've just heard from the LSPs. Have you got anything to add or agree, disagree, or anything to those as the vehicle makers?
Я могу только поддержать, что презентация...
Only support and say that Alberto's presentation was a key one for me today, and it is really so. Everybody now are worried by this deficit issue of rolling stock, good quality rolling stock, the investment into repairs of those vehicle carriers that exist on the market. Very few people expect that the new vehicle carriers will be bought at high prices or big euro, as they say in Russia. But we constantly receive the information from the market that even repair is perceived as very heavy burden for the companies. Nevertheless, I think I'm obliged to call you all to invest right now, as Yelena mentioned, because right now it is a proper step and it will be really appreciated by the manufacturers, and we see this.
To invest into vehicle carrier, and that's where the future is around. And we are waiting for this, expect this from the markets because, of course, the requirements of the customers who get the new cars in the towns outside Moscow are much higher. And we observe the situation when a customer in a little township meets the vehicle carrier and follows it in his own car all the way up to the dealer center, which is not the case in Moscow. No big deal for Moscow. It's a high token event for small towns. And then we're piled up with angry letters from just auto dealers with pictures. The disgruntled customers are sending time after time again. He's saying that the new cars were brought by an old rusty rattle tap of a vehicle carrier, which damaged the wheels, the tires of the new cars, and split old fuel all around, and we have to deal with that, coming up with with our apologies and trying to placate the disgruntled customers. But actually, in 100% of that, all that is done via tender. So that's what the market is offering us. Market is the king in Russia. Market has the final say. What you offer, what you suggest, that's what we have to deal with and to work with. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? A quiet Russian. Yeah, just wait for the microphone, please, Jorgen.
Since you bought me free lunch today. My name is Jürgen. I used to work for Mazda, and now I don't work anymore, so I can't be fired. So it gives me the opportunity to ask anything I want. There is a large amount of subsidy being produced in Russia for transportation. And it's all being channeled into the 3 rail operators today. If you took the same amount of money and gave it for manufacturing of rigs, so trucks and rigs for proper transportation and dealer deliveries, is that something that the OEMs would entertain rather than funneling hundreds of millions of rubles into a rail operation, which after you have traveled the distance, all the money is gone and the wagons are either being used or not being used. So just a thought, perhaps money could be better used if they were spent in a different part of the same sector, which is getting products from A to B. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good point there, Jürgen, but I'd like to widen it a little bit about the development of the importance of developing multimodal solutions in Russia, or should we accept that, again, the basic transportation, at least for the relatively near future, is road, so we should concentrate on investing in road. So again, I don't know, Elena and Camilla, you might have differing opinions there, road versus rail. But again, particularly perhaps to the vehicle makers, but also to the LSPs, about would it be better if more investment went onto the road and so on to fix what is happening, as opposed to trying to force something.
So as to the investments, well, let me comment on that. Multimodal transportation systems have been developing and evolving now because the railroad will not carry from the factory to the dealer all the way up to the dealer. Subsidies are around for railroad transportation as well when it's up to 4,000 kilometers distance. But actually the cars are carried by trucks, then they are stored on the sites, and the last mile link is done also by the vehicle carriers. So multimodal solutions are around. They are very convenient and a very big chunk of distribution now is sitting, so to put it, in the railroad, and subsidies not only for the railroad or for the motorways only. Calculations are being done either way, and there are some fixed amounts to be paid, and the increased volumes which are taken into account. This is all done as well from the economic expediency standpoint. It's not just that the public subsidies are going into the pockets of those manufacturers. All the subsidies are limited somewhat, which is helpful for us, vehicle carriers. That way, we can always offer our very important service, because those who don't remember the way Russia used to be as far back as 1970s, we'd been through different times when from the vehicle carrier, the cars were taken by the buyers themselves. I don't think we'll live up to those times when we're going to see that again. Currently, bottom line for us is to be fully aware that if subsidies are around for manufacturers, that means that we should share those subsidies by raising tariffs for vehicle carriers, thus supporting the railroad. But once again, I reiterate, as to the monopolistic businesses never create something good. There should be a fair competition, which means transparent, well-forecasted production and reproduction. I'm in favor of that. That's for you. Well, we were supposed to be friends, weren't we? Well, a brief comment about monopolists and Railroad transports up to 15% of all the motor vehicles in Russia. And so there are some political implications related to that. But we're also vehicle carriers. We don't have any bones to break between us. We've got common interests.
And perhaps some good news from Russia. I'd like to ask Alexander from SCAD. We were talking about how they're exporting more, exporting as a part supplier now, moving away a little bit from finished vehicle logistics. I'd like to ask Alexander about are there any the advantages of being a Russian part supplier? What advantages do you have, whether it's supplying the Russian market, or how has it helped you to become an exporter to Europe and to major manufacturers? I guess the quality is a given. You have to have a certain level of quality. But have there been any advantages or something that that helps you actually being a Russian part supplier? Can we have the microphone on this side, 'cause I'm still not sure if it works.
Well, if you think back to what I told you about our export deliveries, it all started in 2014. We were thinking back to 11 December of 2014, when euro within 3 days hike up to 100 rubles versus euro within 1 week. 2.5-fold increase. So for us, it's a big advantage that we are a Russian manufacturer, and some chunk of costs is paid out in rubles, but not the entire one, because it's raw materials. More than 50% we are paying in hard currency for that. But raised euro made us to think about the increased export component. All the rest will depend on marginality, provided the Russian market lets on us earning more money and we'll be thriving here, we'll be more in the Russian market, because this export enabled us to live through 2 very tough years.
Perhaps a question for the whole panel again, almost based on that, is the advantage, if there is one, of being in a tough market, is it does force you to be lean, force you to try new ideas. Sometimes the best way, when you are the most innovative, is actually when you have to be, as opposed to when you are comfortable and think, let's fix things. So what changes have you made, either in Russia or perhaps for those of you who work internationally, lessons that you've learned in Russia, being in the tough times, and thought, because it's tough, I've become more efficient or lean in this, and now I can export this to even more successful markets. So I don't know if any of the panel want to take that.
I'll tell you about our know-how. Very simple gimmick we use. First of all, we're fully aware that bottom line is just the reputation, of course, the goodwill. We're cherishing our goodwill, our reputation, that is. We are doing everything not to lose our face over it, over quality. There should be good value for money. Quality should be good and the price should be acceptable. I'm calling upon you, dear customers and dear operators, logistic companies, FVLs, for PLs, if we are signing a contract. So you should abide by your word. Unless you're not going to do that, don't come up with such prices. Don't renege on the deal. That's the major idea. I think it's the good innovation. That way the market will be well understood, clear-cut and transparent and predictable. Another thing, sanctions imposed now for Russia. Those sanctions are not there forever. If you are going to tap international markets, that way you'll foster high-quality drivers who do their best to do what they're supposed to do. you should keep track of all the changes in labor code and take good care of vehicle carriers' qualities. At the end of the day, we're going to export cars made in Russia to EU or outside EU. Trust me, so those innovations we take on board currently are about retaining the teams you have or to extend it so that your employees, your specialists and workers will just keep abreast of the market and deal with all the challenges that happen in April 2018 when we'll be talking about prices close to 80, 600 and 100 rubles per kilometer. Thank you. Well, it's hard to comment on that because we are representatives of the customer. And I fully agree with what my colleagues said before. Of course, we expect from the market that it will be ready to cover our needs on our behalf. We'll do everything we can to support long-term commitments, and by the same token, to expect from you as our partners from the market that you'll also comply and discharge your obligations and commitments on the contract.
To you, they're bringing the microphone, so.
Well,
It's okay.
a lot has been said about outbound logistics, but I'm here to remind you that your success will be utterly impossible provided there are some problems related to the incoming logistics. I'm the inbound logistics guy, so about never reneging on the deal. Well, it would be great if transportation services operators, and we don't have our own vehicle fleet, but they should do two things. Thing number one, if there is any deviation or digression from execution of the order, we should know about it promptly. A short while ago, we had to deal with a case when the operator parked the car, delivered the car. Next day, we didn't receive it. What did happen? The driver saw that the gates were locked or closed. He turned around and off he goes. Second one, never to cheat, even for the good reasons. Always be candid. A short while ago, there was an example. We are asking operator where our container is. He says that it's there and there, but we badly needed that container. And so it turned out that it was 1,000 kilometers away from the place where he said the container was. And then when we asked the operator next day where it was, he moved it by 1,500 kilometers eastwards. Well, never cheat, never lie, be candid, inform us promptly. That will streamline the whole situation.
To hear the other side of the story there. I think there was one more question somewhere. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Katerina Dnovskaya from Renault. I worked in a Renault company last year. Well, I worked in a different company. I would like to talk about innovations, but slightly from another angle. I had the opportunity to be present in the European conference and comparing it to Russia. Unfortunately, I say that for 5 whole years, we go about the same things back and forth. Financial crisis, shortfall of money, and all that. By 2020 in Europe, they expect that actually the unmanned vehicles will be at par when it comes to volumes of sales with the conventional cars. That means that vehicle carriers will not be in high need in Europe for some distances, maybe only. So maybe they will end up being redundant. And is it possible to use them in Russia? What do you think about innovations in the automotive sector, how it will impact Russia maybe by 2050? I can say Can I use Renault as the example?
Different territory. Yes, we are talking about EU zone and the Russian Federation. And we were nominated as with our initiative and our improvement of solution for Renault, because we opened new gate for Kamila Męczyńskiego. It's really very well known as a port as a Gdańsk. And we solved some unbelievable difficult situation with bottleneck and big volume for which was sent via Bremerhaven. Of course, we a little bit take the capacity from our partner / colleague BLG company. I'm so sorry. I only would like to say that we have never stopped process of innovation with our clients. Your comments, for example, you said, you told us that it's not possible to find where is the real position of the truck. It's possible. If you will sign contract with your operator and ask them and look at the open table expenses for the navigation system, you will have completely whole information about it. You will know about 1 meter where real position of your truck and your order, which you ordered as a car or components or something else. That is why I would like to say that, of course, Ževko is one of the biggest operator, logistics operator, solve unbelievable a lot of problems for Toyota. They opened a great compound near the Moscow and eliminated minimum 2 times loading and unloading, which existed in previous logistics version. And again, who would like to exist in this market? Is of course, it's still really a lot of opening possibilities to improve. That is why we are ready to talk with Renault. We are ready to visit your company. We are ready to find some possibilities together, how we can eliminate it together costs and discover the best and the right solution. Thank you.
So, sorry, can we wait for the microphone?
Yeah.
Sorry, because we couldn't hear, sorry.
Yes, I want to say something. I didn't understand your reply because really my question was about something else. It's not connected to the question of our colleague.
Okay.
My question was about innovation and what do you think about European trucks, which will possibly be not needed in Europe soon, in 2025. Maybe we can use this park in Russia because I don't know if you believe if in 2025 we will have self-delivered vehicles in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe that things will happen that quickly. And in fact, I want to say that innovations here, we have lots of innovations in the Russian market. But now everybody understands that innovations are not only when the truck may be driven without a driver, but the innovations may be different. For example, the quality of sites on the Russian market as of now, if you compare them to the European ones or the new ports that are being built, are also innovative. I can't say that IT systems in Russian companies and operate LSPs are very often much better compared to those that are used by operators in Europe. So if we look at some small improvements, which also may be called innovations, there's quite a lot of such in Russia. As for the driverless cars or autonomous cars, I think there's much more things to be done here. For example, improve the quality of the roads. And a short comment about the innovations. I can agree with my colleagues that innovations do not always mean global ones. We consider innovations for ourselves For example, the quality of transit loading. For example, if we learn how to add a third car to the transit or an extra car to the transit norm on vehicle carrier, this will save money as well. So these small innovations for the current economic situation may be even more important. That was my short comment. In terms of innovations, yes, we do have innovations, maybe not as global as in Europe, but we're working in this direction. The question was,
Если в Европе машины сами себя уже способны доставлять к 2025 году,
by 2025 in Europe, the cars will deliver themselves. Maybe what's to be done with this fleet of vehicle carriers? There are lots of emerging countries that will be glad to accept them. Does Russia not belong to them? But the second option is to readjust the tractors to transport cargoes as for the trailers. And the manufacturers may be used to produce more cars. Can we, since we have a deficit of capacity now, can't we think about this capacity from Europe? We, as customer, may... Майя, там идет параллельно вот звук от этих мерседесов. Ну, if I understood you right, your question is about the cars that will be autonomous. And you are speaking about the cars that will be sold to be driven without drivers. So you think that a car produced in Russia or in France will deliver itself to Russia, custom clear itself, etc. The lady is not using the microphone, sorry. Once again, the question is, the car produced at a plant will go by itself to the point of sale. I think this is not possible. Based on my experience, the customers are absolutely against the cars being driven on their own to the dealerships. The mileage, if it is present on the car, is always very questionable. Well, the customers raise a lot of questions if they see that the car has driven certain mileage. And they are not happy with that. So I do not think that the cars will deliver themselves even around Europe, though they will be autonomous. I've been present at a conference in Europe, and they discuss this very actively. They do not think this is a dream, or if this is more as a reality. So this is not science fiction. But I think that for Russia, and this was also part of my question, that it is not a topic for discussion. I also wanted to ask whether the vehicle carriers that won't be needed in Europe will be needed in Russia or may be needed in Russia.
I think there's a lot of kind of questions there that I would, and it's not for me, I'm supposed to be asking the questions, not answering them. But I think, the points that you make there are very good, and it's not as simple as the cars delivering themselves. Perhaps there'll be autonomous trucks. Mercedes themselves are leading, investigations on how the trucks will develop, or whether it'll be platooning, the trucks going together, and so on. So I think there's a lot of changes coming, and perhaps, we said, we talked about it in our Europe conference as well. Maybe going back to that point about making people more innovative, perhaps, in Europe or in North America where there are trucks, maybe the people who need to find and use these innovations are people in Russia where there is a capacity shortage as well. So, but I do think, I think the point is well made that if there are opportunities that we can bring equipment in from other regions, then absolutely, I think everybody would be open to that. But I think Russia as a country should begin to be, I know things are tough now and will be tough for a few years, But I'd like to hope and think that Russia will become more leaders in innovation as well, and not just recipients of other people's innovation as well. So, but it was a very good and interesting question about ways how things change. I think one more question, we've kind of stuck at an important, the discussion about prices and investment and so on. So I will ask a question which will be a tough one, and perhaps again to the car makers, is who sets the rates? Isn't it the market that sets the rates? Is it just the car maker saying, that's all we're paying? Because if that was the case, then no one would do it. Isn't it the market that sets the rates? The reason, if I was buying whatever it is, a book, and the people who are selling the books are saying to me, we will sell it to you for 10 rubles, but someone else says, I will sell you the same book for 5 rubles. Why would I buy it for 10? I would buy it for 5. So is it the market that sets the rates? So to one of the car makers there.
Я потом с удовольствием выскажу.
The answer is very simple. Every time when the manufacturer thinks about transporting cars, he asks how much it will cost, and he asks this question to all the companies represented here, and this is called a tender. So there's no secret and nothing new. Unfortunately, there's no innovations here yet. And receiving the answer to this question, we try to choose the best proposal, the best offer. It's very pleasant to me that Yelena Divakova is here, because we offered them the best proposal that can save some resources, both financial by using different points of deliveries. But I also wanted to mention, as Camille mentioned, is the market that dictates conditions, terms and conditions. But our hopes disappeared in 2016. Back in 2014, remember, I told that the market is underpaying 15% to us, and we are not going to invest into new. If we're not going to invest into new fleet, there will be fewer of us. Then there will be a deficit of carriers and trucks. And if there will be the deficit of trucks, we will be not dictating the terms and conditions, but our highly esteemed customers will hear us when they will see all the costs present as of today. So today, I think, is a very good situation to start the dialogue with our customers by answering the tenders. If we see that our price is different from the competitor's price, not by 1 kopeck, not by 1 cent, but say by 25%, we have to ask how well this operator or the person who proposes such prices is ready to sustain the same terms and conditions for 1 year, 2, or even more, as the customer wishes. And now, Camille, your turn.
So just again to throw it out to the audience, it's unusual for the Russians to be shy. So if there are any questions or comments, I think there was a lady in the corner there.
Добрый день еще раз.
Once again, good
Евгения
afternoon.
Шабанова, компания.
Evgenia Shabanova, Technovisa. Very interesting topics have been touched today about investment into the fleet. Now, in 2017, Technovisa is buying new equipment, and we have come across the following problem. The tractors are being sold without drivers, and we have a real deficit of drivers in Russia, very acute deficit. And those experienced drivers that we had in Russia are being retired now. Young drivers or young men do not want to work as drivers or have not been trained well. Very few are present on the market. And what happens next? We try to buy and cajole drivers from our competitors, offering them better conditions, but this certainly has an impact on our rates and our costs. Dear colleagues, what do you think we should do in this situation? Because the autonomous transport, I think, won't be present in Russia in the near 10 years. Switch everything onto rail, was a remark from Jeffco. 70 cars and only one driver. I think the practice of buying drivers from the competitor companies exists not only in Russia, but in every place where professionals exist. And I think this is a question of policy of each transportation company, how well we listen to and hear our drivers, how many good tools we have to help our drivers. If the driver, an experienced driver, will teach a new driver well, he will receive the bonuses, but his pupil, the new driver, has to work without any car accidents for at least 1 year. I think this is an ethical question, rent-a-company ethical question. I do not believe that one driver comes and says that he has worked in such a wonderful company. We know each other so very well, and there are so very few of us that I think this is all about the tools that will allow us to make the driver say, I will never leave Technovisa, or Victory is the best of companies, and I'm not going to exchange you for another one. I won't believe that there is anybody on the market who is not afraid to take the drivers from Sergei. I will never believe that.
So any final questions or comments from the audience? Okay. Well, I mean, we've reached the end of the session, and therefore the end of the conference. I hope you've enjoyed the full day. As I've said before, Russia is one of my favorite conferences because of this kind of discussion. If you ask abroad, or you ask people, which conference do you think people are the loudest, or will talk most, or will ask the most questions, or will be more honest? People might think it would be the USA, but it's actually one of the quietest, because they're often scared to say anything. I think in Russia you have discussions like this where people are honest, and it's by being honest that you can actually try to solve the issues. So I really appreciate the Russia conference. I really appreciate the questions that you ask. I really appreciate the way that you share the challenges. It wasn't everybody saying everything is perfect and everything is fantastic, because that is what the bosses want to hear, or something like that. It is an honest discussion, and always has been. It's not just now. You might as well be honest, because business is tough. You know, from day one, when we first started our conferences, probably 13 years ago, there were always good, honest discussions. So I really appreciate the interaction and the participation from the audience. I think the fact that so many of you are here today, it's a testament that what you are trying to do as a group to improve the automotive logistics industry in Russia, that you still try and attend, you still try and support us, and that's why we try and support you. You know, it's not an important factor, it's our problem, but it's not, you know, I think it's relatively obvious to say that Automotive Logistics Russia is not, we don't do it, I can tell you, we do not do it for the money, that's for sure. But because we appreciate what you guys do and what you're trying to do for your industry, we're happy to be here to try and support that and to enable the discussion. So firstly, before I conclude the conference, I just want to thank the panel for being an example of how to have an honest discussion where you can share your views. So thank you very much to this panel. Once again, I will remind you about the evaluation forms because they are very, very important to us to help us to plan your conference, as we say. So please complete them and share your, I'm not even sure I need to say this in Russia, but share your honest views. What is good that we can build on, what is not so good that we need to fix. I hope you've enjoyed the discussion. I'd like to congratulate the Russians for your spirit. As I've always said, I find you an inspirational crowd to be in front of. And I hope we tried to repay some of that. It isn't the end of the conference yet because we have a gala dinner to attend, and networking, some drinks outside. I don't know if in Russia, I don't know if they drink alcohol. I'm not sure if they do that. But if you want to join us for some drinks outside, please join us. Just on the subject of the evaluation forms, we did a draw earlier for some of the people who completed the evaluation forms, and the winner of a box of the Queen's biscuits, the Queen's favourite biscuits, is winning a prize. So that goes to Air Charter Service. So is it Dmitry Nikulin from Air Charter Service? The biscuits are at the front desk if we've left any, because I know that they were during the coffee break. I know that my team got very hungry. But there is some luxury English biscuits at the front desk, so please collect them. So thank you for that. Thank you for completing the evaluation form, because I hope the prize for you is not just the biscuits. If you share your honest views, it helps us to provide the best service for you. So we've heard, this is the Russia conference. I think the reason I'm sitting down is because I'm an old man. So the next conferences which are coming up, if you want to find out what's happening in other regions and about innovations, about whose trucks you can take after they go to autonomous cars and autonomous trucks next. The next conference is a finished vehicle logistics in Baltimore in North America. Then our Automotive Logistics Global Conference in Detroit, which people have attended in the past. We have a UK conference now, because although we have a Europe conference, UK of course is not Europe. We are different. After that in November is Automotive Logistics India, then Automotive Logistics South America and Brazil, Automotive Logistics Mexico in January, obviously another big booming market. Our Finished Vehicle Logistics Specialist Conference in the US in California, Automotive Logistics China in Shanghai in April, a special supply chain conference in Atlanta next May, and then of course Automotive Logistics Europe will be back in Bonn in June. I'm going to ask a question which I'm probably going to be shot down by my bosses for asking this question, but if we can use the red and green cards. We have a struggle, we have an issue with Automotive Logistics Russia for 2018. And the question is it's because of the World Cup. It's taken up the time that we allocate for Russia. So my question is, and I'm not even sure how to phrase it, but if you can use the green and red cards. I don't know, we want to do the conference in 2018, but we're not sure when. Because of the impact of the World Cup. It's taking such a lot of time, and even what's happening to the cost of hotels and so on in Russia. Would it, if we were forced to miss a year in 2018, if we came back in 2019, will you forget about us? Will you still support us? Will you be upset with us if we skip the year for the reasons that I've given you? If it was profitability, we would have skipped the last 5 conferences. It's just feasibility and trying to make it happen. So green card if you will still support us in 2019 and forgive us for skipping a year. Red card is if you will be upset with us and beat us up Marcus is our news editor. If you are upset with us, he's the one to beat up. So if you green and red cards, green, will you forgive us for 1 year and support us in 2019? Or red card if you would be upset with us if you feel that we are abandoning Russia. Yeah. Can we have the microphone back on over here for Elena, please?
I know, because of the expression Louis asked you. Because first time Victoria decided to be not sponsoring ship in this conference. I know why. Yes, I promise you. Next year I will be maybe not gold, but maybe platinum, silver. Okay? If it will be exist. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, no, firstly, thank you very much for that. And I think the room was probably 50-50. It is genuinely, like I said, it's not an easy decision for us to make for the reasons that I've said. It isn't just for the profitability. Like I said, otherwise we wouldn't have done it for the last 3 or 4 years. It is really the feasibility, but I just was genuinely interested to get your feedback. So I hope you've enjoyed the 2 days. I hope you will join us for the drinks outside, and then stay for us for the dinner to continue your networking and discussions. Please continue working with us. We still do the Automotive Logistics newsletter in Russian, in the Russian language. Anything we can do for you, whether it's through our editorial, for our news, whether it's just direct contacts, please don't hesitate to contact me and see how we can help you as individuals or as company or as a market. And hopefully, because of, if we get the support of the industry, hopefully we'll see you back in Moscow in 2018. So thank you very much for your participation, and please join us for some drinks outside. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.